Hey guys, thanks for joining me today. So what we're going to talk about today is this, and this is the Walther P22. This is a very common handgun. This is something that's gotten a lot of attention, and I bought this back in 2007, so I've been using it for closing on 6 years now, and so I've got a lot of experience with it, thousands and thousands of rounds through it. So I feel I can probably give you a pretty good, pretty comprehensive review. So this will be an in-depth review, talking about all the highs and lows of the handgun, and so my goal is that if you're considering picking up a P22, that by the end of this video you'll be informed and be able to make a good smart purchase. So we'll just start off here. We'll just be following those talking points you see there on the side as we go through the review, just to help us keep a little bit more organized so you kind of know where I'm going. And also, if you need to skip through the video at all, if it ends up kind of long, which it may, if you skip through you'll kind of know where we are. So let's just start up there at the top with the uses. Why would you buy this handgun? What are you going to use it for? Well, first off, it's just a really nice little plinking gun, just a recreational gun. It's 22 caliber, which is really, really economical to shoot. You can go out, put 500, 1,000 rounds through it, and it's not going to be that expensive. And so that's really nice. Just go shoot the crap out of it and just enjoy it. And so that's one thing I really love about 22 firearms. You can just go shoot them and not feel guilty about it. So, great recreational gun. Now, it is a little bit smaller gun, a little bit shorter barrel and everything, so it's not going to be quite as easy to just tear up the range with it. It is a smaller, more subcompact type gun, so you will really have to focus on your fundamentals, trigger press, proper grip, all that stuff. Other just purely recreational guns like maybe the Ruger 2245, the Browning Buckmark, other guns like that will probably be a little bit easier to just hit all your targets with. But this is a lot of fun to shoot, especially on steel. So secondly, it's also just a good training gun. Like I said, just working on all your fundamentals, trigger press, grip, sight alignment, all that stuff that is really important. And nowadays, with all the concealed carry that's going on, with lots of the subcompact guns being carried, this might be a good thing to have because it's a gun that you can very affordably just go shoot and get used to the kind of shooting that thinner, smaller, subcompact type gun. Now, it's not going to be an exact, the exact feel and everything of your, whatever your carry gun is, but it's close enough that it should give you some valuable training time. Not really what I would consider to be a defensive firearm, just because it's a 22. I'm just not a big fan of 22 as a defensive caliber. If you're somebody that you're saying you need a 22 for defense, whether you're trying to get a gun for somebody who's just really recoil shy or something, and maybe all they can handle is a 22, I would recommend you look at a revolver. And the reason I say that is that the 22, being a rimfire cartridge, sometimes you do just get malfunctions. Cartridges just fail to go off. And in a revolver, you can just skip that one and just keep going. Whereas in an auto, you're going to end up with a malfunction, you're going to have to clear it and all that stuff. So I definitely recommend a revolver for a 22 defensive handgun. So moving on, we'll just talk about dimensions on here. It's a 3.4 inch barrel, so smaller side. Now they also do offer a 5-inch barrel version, and I'm not a huge fan of that. I kind of like the smaller, slimmer package, but if you want a little bit more accuracy out of it, you could go with that 5-inch barrel. It's going to give you a longer sighting radius and longer barrel, and that is actually a kit. If you buy this version, you can actually go out and pick up a 5-inch barrel kit, and so that'll give you a new barrel, a shroud that bolts on, and so you could convert your gun over if you like to. Now, as far as other dimensions, it does come with 2 magazines, one like this, which is your flush fit. They also have another one that has a little, finger extension there to give you just a little bit more purchase on it. Now, I have small hands, and for me, I can get all my fingers on there with the flush one, but if you got a little bit bigger hands, you might really like that little bit extra that it gives you. So it does come with 2 magazines. Now, with this little bit larger one, I found just measuring from the top of your sights to the bottom, very bottom portion of this, you're looking right around 4 3/4 inches. Now with this one, you're looking right around 4.5 inches height-wise. Now thickness, you do have ambidextrous safety levers up here on the slide, so those are going to add a little bit of thickness. Your maximum width on here is going to be 1.1 inches. So it's a fairly thin gun. Your slide and everything, your frame is actually even a little bit thinner than that, around an inch. So it is a very thin gun, feels really good in the hand, and it's a gun that I found that younger shooters, women, even just, you know, guys with smaller hands really like. It really just fits in your hand like a glove. It's very ergonomic, and it just feels really, really nice. It's just a nice little 22 handgun. I mean, if you hold it, I think you really like it. It just has a really nice feel to it. So moving on to capacity, your magazines on here are really well made. They are a steel body with a polymer follower in there. They're going to be really durable. They hold up really well. You have this little slider on the side. Now it is only a 10-round magazine. That's pretty standard for most, you know, 22 caliber handguns and stuff. I know there are some out there like the 22 caliber version of the Smith & Wesson M&P. That's a 12 round, so that's really nice. But for this size handgun, 10 rounds is totally adequate, especially for a little 22. So these are good, you know, good quality magazines. They've held up very well for me. Steel feed lips, you know, I do like a good metal magazine, and it does include 2 when you get it, so it comes with 2 magazines. That's really nice. I hate it when I get a gun and it only has 1 magazine. I feel like I've been gypped. So, it does come with 2. If you want to buy another one, I think they're going right around 25 to 30 bucks for another magazine. So, you know, not super expensive, but not, I don't know, not super cheap either. So, definitely worth it though if you need to pick up several extras. So, moving on to ergonomics. Like I mentioned, it is a very ergonomic gun. It really feels good in the hand. And as far as your controls go on here, it is a double to single action handgun. Kind of. And the reason I say that is, you know, when you have your hammer down like this, if you pull the trigger, and now I'm not going to dry fire this because it is a 22, I'll hold the hammer. So if you pull the trigger, it will fire in double action if you had it around in the chamber. But as soon as you put a magazine in here, rack it, you're going to be in single action. And there's no decocker on here. So if you do want to end up with a round in the chamber and that double action pull, you're just going to have to thumb your hammer down, just like that. Now, when you're doing that, there is a safety, so I would recommend you use that. Now, it is a hammer block safety, so pull the hammer back there, see we're on fire, we flip it to safe, rotates that block up so that if that hammer did fall, it's not going to be able to contact your firing pin. And so it is a hammer block safety on here. So, you know, down is safe, up is fire. It's not a really ergonomic safety. You know, it's not like a 1911 or something where you're going to sit there and just be running your safety all day. I honestly don't really use it. Mostly what I'll do if I'm going to carry this is I'll just, you know, throw it on safe, load around in the chamber, thumb my hammer down, throw it on fire, and carry it just like this in double action. So your first shot will be double action, the rest of them will be single action. That's just how I prefer it. Now your trigger on here is a pretty decent trigger. Now like I mentioned, you're not really going to shoot it in double action mode very much, so your single action is really what matters, especially for recreation and stuff. Your single action is a pretty decent trigger. Now when we throw that hammer block on there, if we did dry fire this, it's not going to actually hit the firing pin, so it's not going to, you know, harm our chamber, which is really what you're worried about when you're dry firing. So if we do drop this hammer, it will just hit that hammer block, so we'll just do that a few times. So when you pull this trigger, there's just a little bit of take up, just like that, a little bit of take up, and then it breaks. So it's probably, I'd put maybe around a 5-pound trigger, and you can look up the specific weight. It's not too light, you know, where it's gonna just go off, you know, when you're not even expecting it, but it's not overly heavy either. It's a pretty decent trigger. So trigger's pretty decent. I like it. It is a polymer trigger with some ridges on there. Not too sharp or anything. I do like the trigger. It does include just this kind of German style mag release that's kind of built into into your trigger guard right here. And so what you do is you're gonna, you know, just push that down, and you can do that from either side, so it is ambidextrous, so that is a benefit. Honestly, I think a lot of American shooters would really just prefer just a push button type release, you know, like most of the guns that are out there. And another thing about that that's a little bit of a hit is that it's very short. You know, you notice it stops right here. If you look at some of the other Walther designs, the PPQ, the PPS, a lot of the other ones that utilize this, they actually have extended that lever out a bit more, so it's a lot easier to hit with maybe like your trigger finger or something. This one, I do have to shift my grip a little bit in order to hit that. So that's a little bit of a downside, but one big upside of it is that when this thing gets rid of the magazine, like, it launches it. I mean, most guns just kind of unlock the magazine so it can fall out. Not so with this thing. I mean, we'll just hold this vertically and I'll hit it. I mean, it's literally like ejecting that magazine out of here. If we hold it horizontally, it'll shoot the magazine out. So that is a really nice feature, and that's actually something I wish a lot more people would integrate into their guns. It just makes sense. You know, when you want to get rid of that magazine, let's shoot it out of the gun. That makes sense to me. So overall ergonomics are pretty good. Another nice feature of it is that you do have interchangeable back straps. And we'll pull over the case here. It does come with a pretty nice hard case. So we'll flip this open. And inside here, you'll notice that you do have another back strap. So this is the larger one. I have the smaller one on the gun. And so what you're going to do is you're just going to drive out that little roll pin right there. So just press that out. And then you just pop this one in, and so you have two different sizes. I prefer the little bit smaller one. This one will give you a little bit bigger hump here on the back, and just, you know, your hand size will dictate. For me, I like the little bit smaller one, but this one feels just fine too. So you do have interchangeable back straps. Now this one is the version 1 of the gun. You'll notice if you buy one today, there's a little bit different look to it. It looks a little bit more like the PPQ. This one was styled a little bit more like the P99. And so they just changed the looks of a little bit, how they molded it a little bit. This one has some dots on there and everything. Not a ton of traction, but it is comfortable. You know, it's not a gun that I'm really worried about getting a ton of traction on, because it's not a defensive gun for me. So it does feel nice in the hand. So there's your safety, magazine release. You do have a little bit of an accessory rail up here on the front. Now, the newer version does have more slots cut in there for more adjustability in mounting something. So if you did want to put a light or a laser on there or something, I suppose you could. For me, again, not a defensive gun. But if you wanted to train, you know, with a light up there on the front, get used to shooting in the dark and things like that, you can definitely do that. So that's a nice feature. Up here on the trigger guard, it is flattened. So if you're somebody that likes shooting with your finger up there on the trigger guard, I'm not, but if you are, it's there for you. So overall, ergonomics are pretty nice, and so we'll move on to accuracy. Your sights on here are pretty decent sights, pretty typical of, you know, just most 3-dot sights. Now you do have adjustability here in the back for windage, so you can adjust windage up here on the back, and you'll adjust elevation up here on the front. And they actually include several front sight blades. Now these are just polymer sights. So they're not going to be something that you're going to want to, you know, like be practicing malfunction drills off the back sight or anything. But these are just polymer. But so far they've held up well for me. So this front one, they do ship it with 3 different heights. So breaking into our case here again, when we look in here, we'll just dump this out. A little bag of goodies that it includes. So when we dump this out, they do also include 2 other front sights. So depending on the ammo you're shooting, depending how it's shooting for you, just replace it with the one that, you know, functions right for you. So that is nice that they include them. They don't make you go track down, you know, other heights or anything. It's all included. Now, as far as accuracy goes, I'm terrible when it comes to, you know, keeping paper targets. I mostly shoot the guns on steel and you know, shooting clay pigeons and different stuff on different berms. So I'm not, you know, big on shooting paper. I did track down one target that I shot. I shot this back in 2010, so you know, a few years ago. And so this was 10 shots, 20 feet, basically 7 yards, and this is what you can expect. About a 2-inch group. So not, you know, amazing, you know, target grade accuracy, But remember, it's a subcompact, 3.4-inch barrel, very thin, small gun. So I'm not expecting, a 1-inch group or anything out of this. What I found is that it really does make you focus on your fundamentals. If you're not a squared away handgun shooter, you're probably not going to hit very well with this. If you are, if you got a good grip, good sight alignment, trigger press, all that stuff, you can do pretty well with it. You can be very accurate with it if you want to be, and if you really take the time. I found at 10 yards hitting an 8-inch steel plate is pretty easy. At 30 yards hitting a 12-inch steel plate is pretty easy. So it's definitely accurate enough. And this is all with just cheap bulk ammo. I'm not putting anything any target ammo in this or anything. So accurate enough, but you can definitely find more accurate 22 handguns if you're really concerned about that. I'd put it pretty much on par. So accuracy is good. Now reliability, it is a 22 handgun, and so you're gonna have hiccups every once in a while. That's just kind of the way it is. Now it's a gun that definitely likes high impulse ammo. So when I first got the gun, when it was brand new out of the box, it hadn't been broken in at all. It definitely had a few more malfunctions than I do now, and so I'd recommend your first maybe 100, 200 rounds, you put a good quality, high impulse, like a CCI mini mag or something like that through it, just to help break in the system a little bit. Keep it well lubricated. Don't be afraid to just, put a lot of oil in there and stuff. It's a plinking gun, so it's not the type of thing where I'm afraid of collecting grime in there. I'll oil it up. When it gets dirty, I'll clean it out. So keep it clean, keep it lubed, and avoid hollow points. That's the other thing I found. You want solid, solid bodied bullets. They don't have to be copper plated or anything, but just avoid hollow points. Some of the bulk pack stuff are hollow points, and that's not going to do so well in here. So just an FYI. But I put plenty of bulk pack through this. Lots of, the majority of the ammo through it is bulk ammo. And by the vast majority of it, it ran pretty good. Just every once in a while you got to contend with an issue, and that just gets you used to clearing malfunctions and things. It's not too big of an issue. Just go in, expecting a 22. It will hiccup every once in a while. As far as maintenance goes on here, it's a pretty easy gun to maintain. Now this is just a straight blowback design. So, your barrel's not tilting or anything. It's just a straight blowback, 22. So the way you're going to maintain this, to clean it and everything, obviously take your magazine out, make sure it's safe, and then you're just going to pull down on this tab. There's this tab on both sides of the gun, and it, just pop down on it, pull down on it, and it'll pop down like that. Pull back on the slide, lift up on the rear, ride it forward. Here's your slide. Now this is nice and dirty from the range. I didn't really clean it for the review. But, so there's your slide. Inside here, your recoil spring actually goes right in here below. It's kind of an interesting design. You do have a steel guide rod. For those of you that are really nitpicky about that, you do have a steel guide rod in here. And so here's your action. You do have steel rails that it's riding on in here. Here's a look at your internals. So just clean that all out, lube it up, clean your barrel out, all that good stuff, just like you clean any other handgun. And then to put it back together, you will need something. What they include is just this little polymer rod. And what that's for is when you put this portion back in here, you sit it back in there, you're going to put this little polymer rod in the remaining part of that spring where there is no guide rod. And so then you line this up, pop your lever up, and there you go. So this just fell out. All that was doing is just allowing that spring to go in there properly. You could use whatever you want. They just include this. So it goes together And one other thing you'll notice about this is that there is a magazine disconnect in here. I really hate that, but I've learned to live with it with this gun. So in order to drop that hammer, you will have to insert a magazine to drop it. I hate it. I've looked in there. It's not easily, taken out. Some guns it's pretty easy to deactivate. This one it's pretty embedded in the design. So you're not going to be able to get out that magazine disconnect, unfortunately. So it does have that, but it's not the end of the world. So maintenance is pretty straightforward. Now as far as accessories go on here, it's a very accessorizable gun. They offer lots of different variants of it, lots of colors. It's a gun that people just like to have fun with. There's been some versions that have been suppressed, I know, and the way that you're going to suppress this is that if you live in a state and location where you can have a suppressor, is you'll notice on this barrel there's a little bit of a nut right up here on the front. So you'll just use this little wrench that's included and just fit it on there, and we'll just remove this. Alright, so we've got this removed, and once you have that removed, you'll notice there's a thread pattern on there. And so what you'll have to do is you will have to buy an adapter. It doesn't come with the gun, but if you buy an adapter, it will adapt it to a standard thread pattern. And so what I've done is I've actually adapted this to fit a flash suppressor. And so I know it's not a sound suppressor, not quite as cool, but hey, it's a lot cheaper, a lot easier to do, and requires a lot less paperwork. So we'll throw that that flash suppressor on there, just a standard A2 bird cage. That gives it kind of a different look. Some people may love that, some people may hate that. I think it's kind of cool. So you can just throw standard AR-15 muzzle devices on there. Now it does reduce the flash a little bit. You still get a little bit out of there. It's just such a short barrel. There's just a lot of blast coming out of it. But it's more for looks, I'd say, than function. Although I guess if you were going to shoot this at night and you didn't want to be seen, that would definitely be a recommended accessory. So you can put different stuff on there. I think that's pretty cool. There's also holsters and things available for it. It's been out long enough, it's popular enough that you can definitely accessorize it however you want, pretty much. Now one thing to mention is that if you want to take this gun down, because that slide does ride forward, you will have to take whatever you have on here off. So now that this is on, I can't just pull the slide off of it as easily. Not too big of a deal, just something to keep in mind. So fairly easy to accessorize, and you can definitely have a lot of fun with the P22. Another benefit of that is just it's a little bit more weight out there, just settles the gun down just a little bit more. Getting sidetracked. Maybe you could also throw like a compensator or something on there. There's not much recoil, but I don't know. You can definitely have fun with it. So price-wise on here. Price-wise, you're talking, for just the basic black model, around $330. And for the 5-inch model, for the different colors, for threaded barrel versions, basically versions that have a little bit longer barrel, so you don't have to have an adapter. It can go up $450, but basic model around $330. At that price point, there is a lot of competition. There's a lot of other really good guns, a lot of other really good 22 handguns that you can get for that price. So let's talk about a few of those other options. First off, the Ruger 2245. More of a target pistol, but a really good proven gun, very reliable, a little bit more accurate, and for just a good plinking gun, can be a lot of fun. The Browning Buckmark, the Sig Mosquito. Now the Sig Mosquito is a little bit bigger gun. It's more of a full-size gun. It's an aluminum frame, but the Sig Mosquito is a good gun, and it's in a very similar price range, so that's something to check out. The Smith & Wesson M&P 22 caliber version is a good gun. 12-round magazines. If you're an M&P shooter already, I definitely check out that gun. I think it's a little bit more expensive than the P22. Another huge competitor to it, kind of a knockoff to be honest, but another big competitor is the Ruger SR22. The Ruger is very similar in size, and from what I've heard, I haven't shot one yet, But from what I've heard from other comparisons and reviews, it's going to be more reliable than this. Like I mentioned, the P22 can be finicky at times with the wrong ammo, if it's not clean, things like that. So the SR22 is definitely a good competitor, very similar price point. And honestly, my best advice to you is, if you're kind of torn between the two, if you can, get to a gun shop and hold them both. Just look them over both. They're both quality manufacturers. Both have a good reputation. Both can be reliable. The P22 I've had pretty good luck with under the right conditions. I think they're both good guns. I definitely check out the Ruger SR22 as well. I think it's a really good competitor, and we'll give this a run for its money. So that's pretty much it, guys. If you have any questions at all, feel free to leave those in the comments. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about this Walther P22. Very cool little gun. I really like it. Made in Germany. I don't know. I like it. Very cool little gun. So again, if you have any questions, leave that in the comments. I appreciate you guys watching. If you like what you saw, feel free to subscribe and click that little like button. Everyone have a nice day, and thanks for watching.